White ribbons fluttered from the rafters of St. Agnes Church, catching the yellow June light like trapped butterflies. Inside the fellowship hall, the reception throbbed with bass and with the glow of small-town hope that Mark Holloway and Lisa Marsden might outrun the gravity that kept most people anchored to Ashwood, Indiana. They were a handsome pair. Mark in a borrowed tux that shrank his broad shoulders. Lisa wrapped in vintage silk her mother had rescued from an estate sale. They had practiced their foxtrot in the Marston living room for weeks. Lisa counting steps beneath her breath, Mark pretending he wasn't terrified of looking foolish. Now, beneath a gaudy disco ball, they danced alone as Unchained Melody slipped into its last chorus. Lisa rested her cheek against Mark's chest. He steadied her with a calloused palm at her waist. For one suspended minute, the chatter stopped. Forks froze midway to mouths, and cameras clicked in reverent cadence. "Ready to leave?" Mark whispered. "Only if we never come back," she murmured. The DJ's mic caught just enough to make the guests laugh, mishearing mischief as wifely satire. Mark's grin twitched. He meant it to. 2 weeks earlier he had sold his '68 Camaro to cover a down payment on a fixer-upper outside Denver, a place where no one recalled his father's drinking or Lisa's brother's prison stint. The song ended. Applause thundered. Lisa snatched the bouquet from her sister Abby, winked, and launched it so high that its roses grazed the ceiling fan before tumbling into a net of grasping arms. Someone shouted, "Catch of a lifetime," and flashbulbs strobed. Glitter from sparklers outside shimmered on the waxed floor. The scent of buttercream, generated diesel, and cut grass mingled in the humid air. The white Mustang waited at the curb, chrome bumper smudging the sunset. They sprinted through a tunnel of guests. Rice pelted their shoulders like warm sleet. Sparklers hissed. Lisa's veil snagged on a boutonniere pin, left dangling on Mrs. Hollowell's lapel. Doors slammed in unison. "Floor it, cowboy." Lisa laughed, toes already freed from satin shoes. "I'm flooring. It's a V6, not a rocket," Mark said, punching the gas. "Cabins, 2 hours. We'll get there before midnight." "Midnight is for pumpkins," she teased. "We'll get there before anyone changes their minds." "Whose mind? Yours. Or mine? Both," she said. Quieter they merged onto Highway 3 taillights stitching red across dark farmland. For 10 miles, they traded half-sung melodies and half-serious plans. Lisa rolled her window down, summer wind lashing her curls. Mark matched her laugh with a whoop. Cornfields blurred into black slabs. Fireflies sparked like scattered embers. The road narrowed where the county forgot repairs. Asphalt cracked weeds, forcing fissures wider each season. A faded billboard warned of deep water no diving near Harrow Quarry. Beyond it, a gravel spur dipped toward the abandoned site where teenagers brought cheap beer and braver promises. Mark slowed. Headlights trembled over the warning sign. Lisa squeezed his thigh, meaning, "What's wrong?" He shrugged. The detour shaved 15 minutes. Nothing kills romance like road fatigue, he thought. At mile marker 47A, reflection winked in. The ditch may be a bottle, maybe eyes. Mark glanced and the Mustang drifted half a foot. Lisa yelped. He corrected. A Junebug exploded against the windshield, green guts smearing into lurid streaks. "Let's pull over," Lisa said suddenly. He frowned. "We're 30 minutes out. I just need air." "It's too hot," she lied, wiping sweat from her neck. He signaled, easing onto gravel. The engine idled, ticking like a metronome. "Cold feet?" he asked softly. "Hot head," she replied. "Crazy day." He leaned to kiss her, but she turned, staring toward the quarry's ink-black pit beyond the trees. An owl called once. Twice, insects drummed water, lapped unseen rock. The dome light glowed as Lisa opened the door. She stepped out, gown hiked, bare feet on stones. Mark followed, hands in pockets, unsure whether to joke or hold her. "We could leave tonight," she whispered. "Just keep driving west." Denver was west. So were the unpaid debts he hoped to outrun. "Tomorrow," he promised. She looked back at him, eyes storm dark, then smiled, small, decisive, and climbed inside. He rounded the hood, fingers tracing warm steel, as the doors clicked shut. A lone fireworks, someone's belated tribute burst over town, white sparks dissolving into smoke. The Mustang rolled forward until darkness swallowed its taillights like a mouth-closing dot. By dawn, the bouquet would lie on the center line near mile marker 47. Petals bruised, ribbon wet from dew, still glistening with early summer rain. Everything. Elscar, bride, groom would be gone. Asterisk Sheriff Delcarte's phone rang at 5:42. A.M. A deputy's voice crackled. Found something strange off Highway 3. Near the quarry, looks like a wedding bouquet. The bouquet sat wilting in the morning mist, like a forgotten offering, white roses browned at the edges, ribbon trailing across the asphalt like a severed nerve. Sheriff Delcarte crouched beside it, squinting through his bifocals, fingers grazing the damp petals. Wedding colors matched the Marston Hollowell ceremony last night. Deputy Mike Barnes muttered, flipping through a pocket-sized notepad. Reception ended around 10. Mustang hasn't been seen since. Dell exhaled slowly, rubbing his jaw. He'd seen dozens of missing persons cases fizzle into bad decisions, honeymooners gone rogue, newlyweds with second thoughts. But this felt different. Something about the bouquet's placement centered, deliberate, like punctuation, not accident. Any skid marks? Nope, no signs of a crash. Car didn't veer or stop suddenly. Dell stood, joints crackling. The early light cut through the trees, illuminating the narrow gravel pull-off. 30 yards ahead, the road curved near Harrow Quarrier Place. Local teens knew well, and adults pretended to forget. He pulled out a cigarette, unlit, and chewed the filter. Let's start with the quarry. Check the embankment, see if anyone heard anything strange overnight nearby farms, the gas station, and send someone to the motel just in case they detoured. Quietly, Mike. I don't want the whole town in a frenzy by breakfast. But of course, it was too late. By 8 a.m., Lisa's sister Abby was pacing in the Marstons' living room, barefoot and hollow-eyed, while her mother fluttered between denial and dread, like a hummingbird in a glass box. She wouldn't just disappear. Abby kept repeating. She left her favorite scarf. She never leaves her scarf. And in the Hollowell trailer across town, Mark's mother, Bernice, stared blankly at the phone. They're just ... Having a moment, she whispered to no one. They'll call soon. Dell wasn't convinced. He drove out to the quarry himself, gravel crunching under tires as the cruiser rolled to a stop. The place hadn't changed in decades, just a slab of land overgrown with sumac and poison ivy, a crater of water, left behind when the limestone operation went belly up in '73. Teenagers came here for bonfires, cheap thrills, and bad decisions. The deepest part of the quarry was cold and black and unforgiving. Even in summer, Dell walked the edge. No tire tracks, no broken guardrails, nothing but cattails and water glinting like oil. Still, he felt that tightness in the gut. Lawman get when something doesn't sit right. Back in town, Jenna Doyle, staff reporter for the Ashwood County Beacon, caught wind of the story faster than he expected. She showed up uninvited at the sheriff's office with a pen behind her ear and a look that said, "You need me." "So, let me guess," she said, sliding into the guest chair. Young lovers vanish into the dark after their fairy tale wedding. No note, no fight, no car. Lisa's a local sweetheart. Mark's a bit of a mystery. Everyone's already whispering. Her smile was thin. That bouquet photo's gonna run page 1. You want it with facts, or you want rumor to win? Dell sighed. You print one thing out of line, Jenna, and I'll ban you from this case. You can't ban me from oxygen, Dell, she grinned. Let me help. Let me ask the questions you're not allowed to. Outside, word spread like prairie fire. Some blamed an ex-boyfriend. Others said Mark had debts, bad ones. A waitress claimed she saw them at midnight, arguing near the rest stop. A trucker swore he passed the Mustang heading north, away from the cabin. None of it lined up by nightfall. Volunteers combed the woods. Flashlights blinked across fields. Sheriff Carter stood by the quarry again, staring into water that held its secrets close. He tossed the unlit cigarette in and watched it vanish back at the station. A mechanic from the Marston family garage handed over an odd detail. The Mustang's gas tank had been topped off at 9:47 p.m. Exactly 13 minutes before they were last seen, but no one at the station remembered fueling it. Lisa's best friend swore Lisa hated driving at night. Mark's old roommate revealed the groom was terrified of drowning, ever swam a day in his life. Which begged the question, why would they pull over by Harrow Quarry? Dell closed the office door and looked at the board now littered with strings, photos and timelines. None of it added up. Two kids on the cusp of a new life don't just disappear on their honeymoon. Not without help. Not without someone else knowing something, as he stared at the bouquet. Now drying on the evidence table, the finality of it hit him. It wasn't a symbol of joy anymore. It was a marker, a grave with no body. He turned out the light and locked the door, the bouquet still casting a faint floral scent beneath the hum of the ceiling fan that the next morning Jenna Doyle would run the headline, "Newlyweds Gone Without a Trace. Honeymoon Turns to Horror," and behind the scenes, one blurry photo from a motel parking lot security cam would surface time-stamped 2:03 a.m., a white Mustang, a tall man, and a shadow in the back seat. The image was grainy pixels, smeared like watercolor under rain. But there it was, a white Mustang, headlights dimmed, parked at the edge of the Stillwater motel lot. The timestamp read 2:03 a.m., May 5, 1985. Jenna Doyle enlarged the printout until the dots blurred into abstractions. The man near the driver's side resembled Mark Hollowell by build, tall, wide-shouldered. But the shadow in the back seat, no features, just a blur, like someone hunched, waiting, or hiding. She'd seen worse images tell better stories, and if there was one thing she'd learned in 10 years of local reporting, it was that disappearances grow louder with silence. She set the photo next to a stack of Lisa and Mark's wedding portraits, faces still glowing with reception wine warmth. By week's end, those smiling faces would haunt every telephone pole in Ashwood. Jenna grabbed her recorder and keys. Lisa's mother, Eleanor Marston, was folding dish towels when Jenna arrived. Her eyes were red, but dry. She had passed the point of tears, orbiting somewhere between numb and stubborn. "Do you have children?" she asked. Without looking up, "No," Jenna answered softly. "Then you can't know what this feels like, but you're welcome to sit. Coffee's hot." Jenna nodded, setting her recorder down but not turning it on. Eleanor gestured to a half-filled scrapbook on the table. "I've been gathering photos. They said it helps the search teams to remember the small things. Freckles, scars." She flipped a page. Lisa, as a toddler, grinning toothless. Lisa, in a ballerina costume. Lisa, holding a sparkler, age 9. "She wouldn't run," Eleanor whispered. "She wouldn't do that to Abby, or me." Did Lisa seem different before the wedding? Eleanor paused. She seemed excited, nervous, but excited. She asked me if it was still okay to have doubts. I said everyone does. Her voice cracked. I didn't know how deep they ran. Jenna waited. Then, did she mention anyone from her past? Anyone who might have tried to talk her out of it? Eleanor's eyes sharpened. She never stopped talking to Rick. Rick Lowell had always been the charming type, the one mothers warned daughters about after he'd left, best man, former high school quarterback. Once rumored to have been more than just Mark's best friend, Jenna tracked him to a used car lot just outside county lines. He leaned against the hood of a Chevy Nova, polishing its rusted mirror like it might sell if it looked itself in the eye. "She was like a sister to me," Rick said, voice flat. "You two were close. We were kids. That was a million years ago. You were seen with the Mustang after midnight." He straightened, wiping grease on his jeans. "I dropped them at the motel. That's it." "Then why didn't you tell Sheriff Carter that the first day?" Rick leaned in. "Because I knew how it'd look. Mark's gone, Lisa's gone, and I'm the third wheel." His voice dropped. "They were arguing in the car when I left. About Denver, about debt, about trust." "What kind of trust?" He didn't answer, Just walked back into the garage and shut the door. By the second week, the posters began to tear. Rain curled their corners. Faces once vibrant were bleached by sun, distorted by humidity. Ashwood's grocery store walls, the church bulletin board, even the post office windows all looked like shrines to ghosts now. Teenagers used Lisa's missing photos as a Snapchat dare. The town librarian wept while pinning Mark's face over a help wanted sign. And still, no leads. Sheriff Carter reopened old cold cases. He met with FBI consultants. They used sonar in the quarry, even dredged a section but came up empty. Sometimes, Del muttered to Jenna over his desk, people vanish because they want to. Other times, because someone else makes damn sure they stay gone. The whispers started at local diners. Lisa was seeing someone else. Mark had a gambling problem. They staged it. Ran off together. Maybe to Mexico. But some whispers cut deeper. She was pregnant, you know. Maybe she found out something. At the reception, I heard the best man got violent when drunk. Jenna sorted fact from fiction, like gold panning, most of it silt. But every so often, something glittered. One waitress from the reception, Kayla Trent, mentioned an odd moment around 9:30 p.m., Lisa leaving the bathroom pale, hand shaking. She said she forgot something in the car, but she looked like she'd seen a ghost. Kayla recalled. Jenna circled that detail in red. Maybe Lisa had learned something that night, something too big to ignore. Back at her office, Jenna stared at the board she'd built. Photos, pins, headlines, timestamps, motel footage, quarry maps. And dead in the center Lisa's bridal portrait, smiling forever, frozen at the beginning of something that never had an end. Jenna clicked on her tape recorder. Week 2. No ransom, no witnesses, no evidence of foul play. The car, the bride, the groom all vanished. But something broke that night. Something someone is keeping very, very quiet. She paused, and if I'm right, someone else was there. Someone who watched them vanish. Maybe even helped it happen. 2 days later, a florist downtown found something strange in her dumpster. A wedding invitation burned at the edges. Faintly smelling of gasoline. The names were still legible. Mark Hollowell and Lisa Marston, May 4, 1985. But scrawled in black ink across the back were 3 chilling words. Not meant to be. It was the kind of diary that shouldn't exist. Lined pages. Torn at the corners, the floral cover stained with makeup, and something that might have been wine. Abby Marston held it with both hands like a ticking bomb. I wasn't snooping, she told Sheriff Carter, voice low and brittle. It was in the bottom of Lisa's hope chest. Buried under scarves, old cards. Like she didn't want it found, but also didn't want it lost. Del Carter nodded, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. Abby sat, smoothing her jeans, her foot twitching restlessly. She wrote everything in here, she continued. And I mean everything. About Mark, about someone else. Del raised an eyebrow. Someone else. Abby opened the diary to a page she'd already March 17, 1985. The handwriting was neat but frantic. Like someone racing their own thoughts. He called again, said he was sorry. He's always sorry. I told him it's too late. That I love Mark. But why does my stomach still flip when I hear his voice? I'm about to marry a good man. A safe man. But the past has claws. Del exhaled slowly. You think she was still seeing someone? Abby hesitated. I think she was tempted. There's more. 2 days before the wedding, she wrote, I saw him. We shouldn't have. We didn't mean to, but we did. It's the last time. It has to be. I can't go into this marriage carrying that night. She was talking about Rick, Del asked. I don't know, Abby whispered. She never says his name. Just he. But Lisa never got closure with him after high school. You remember how it was? Oh, Del remembered. Rick Lowell had been trouble-wrapped in cologne and varsity jackets. Everyone saw it except Lisa. Abby continued. She also mentions a safe box at the cabin. Said she was going to leave something there, just in case things go wrong. That phrase stuck to Del's ribs like raw dough. The cabin had been rented under Mark's name 6 weeks before the wedding. Nestled at the edge of Lake Vermilion, it was private enough to host honeymoons, fishing trips, or disappearances. Dell took a team out there with a search warrant and a crowbar. Inside, it smelled like cedar and mildew. A champagne bottle sat unopened on the table. The bed was made. Towels untouched. No fingerprints beyond the cleaning crews, but in the closet, behind a loose plank, they found a small lockbox with Lisa's handwriting on the tag. The key was missing. Dell stared at the box like it might open itself. Back in town, the gossip train picked up steam. By now, the entire county was divided into factions. Team Mark believed Lisa ran off with another man, dragging Mark into chaos. Team, Lisa insisted. Mark had snapped under pressure and taken her with him to some dark, final place. Team Rick was smaller, quieter, but more dangerous. They whispered that all three were in on something. That this wasn't just a love triangle, it was a conspiracy. Jenna Doyle listened from the corner booth of Johnny's Diner, scribbling notes between bites of dry toast. Across from her sat father Nolan, an unlikely source but a sharp observer. "Confession isn't what it used to be," he said with a tired smile. "Now, it's whispers in parking lots and anonymous letters slid under the church door." "Letters?" Jenna perked up. He slid a small envelope across the table. "No return address. Postmarked locally. Inside, a single note." She knew too much about the books. Mark wasn't innocent. Neither was Rick. They were using her. Then she used them. Jenna's pulse quickened. "What books?" Father Nolan tapped the table. "You're the reporter, Dig." She did. First stop, Hollowell and Sons Construction. Mark had taken over the business after his father's passing a business that, by all accounts, was bleeding money. According to city permit records, Mark filed 3 building applications in the past year. All approved, all never completed. Funds drawn, nothing built, embezzlement. She cross-referenced invoices. 2. Shared a secondary signature, R. Lowell. Rick. So maybe Lisa had discovered something. Maybe she hadn't been the one lying. Maybe she was the only one telling the truth, and for that, she paid the price. Dell finally tracked down Rick again, this time at a dive bar in South Greer County. It was nearly midnight, and Rick had already put away 3 bourbon and cokes when Dell slid into the booth beside him. "You still think I killed them?" Rick asked, half laughing, half daring. Dell didn't answer, just placed the diary on the table. Rick didn't touch it. "She talks about you," Dell said. "Talks about seeing you before the wedding, about secrets, about that cabin." Rick stared at the wood grain of the table like it might split open. "I didn't touch her," he said. "I swear to God. She called me, said she needed to talk. I picked her up. We talked. That was it." "Did Mark know?" Rick flinched. "Maybe. I don't know. I don't think so. He wasn't doing so great. Business stuff. Pressure. Lisa wasn't blind to it. I think she was scared of what she was marrying into." Dell leaned in. "Did she have dirt on you? Financials? Evidence?" Rick shook his head, but it was too slow to believe. "She told me she'd leave something in case things went bad. I thought she meant a letter or some dumb goodbye note." "She meant insurance." At the sheriff's office, Dell handed the lockbox to a technician with orders to crack it clean. Inside, they found a flash drive rare in '85, newer, added. Later, 3 printed invoices from Hollowell and Sons, falsified day, scanned image of a check for $50,000 made out to Rick Lowerland, a photo. Lisa and Rick, dated May 3, 1985, her lips near his ear, his hand on her waist. A matchbook from the Stillwater Motel lay beneath it all. Scrawled inside, in Lisa's handwriting, "Secrets get you killed. Trust only what you bury." Back in Jenna's office, the board grew crowded. Pins now curved into a cruel triangle. Lisa, Mark, Rick, and in the center. The word motive, the deeper she dug, the more the truth seemed like a moving target. But Jenna knew one thing with certainty. Lisa hadn't just vanished. She'd known something was coming, and she'd tried, in her own way, to leave behind a breadcrumb trail. For whoever was willing to follow it, Rick Lowell sat in his pickup, hands frozen on the wheel, staring at the sheriff's office through the cracked windshield. The sun was just coming up, setting the brick building aglow like it was something holy. It WASN. Single quotes T. Inside that building, Sheriff Del Carter held evidence that could bury him alive. And all Rick could do was wait to see which coffin would fit first, his reputation or his body. The matchbook, the fake invoices, that goddamn photo. Lisa had promised she'd burn it. Sheriff Carter stood over the evidence table like a priest over a confessional. The lockbox's contents lay arranged beneath a sterile sheet of plexiglass. It looked like an exhibit in a museum of betrayal. The check $50,000, signed by a Hollowell account, made out to Rick. The photo Lisa in Rick's arms. One day before the wedding, the invoices 3 falsified bills, approved and billed. 0 constructed, and the matchbook. Always the matchbook. Deputy Mike Barnes hovered nearby, eyebrows knotted. You think this was blackmail? He asked. Carter didn't answer. Not because he didn't know, but because he wasn't ready to admit it out loud. Instead, he flipped the photo over. Lisa had written something faint in pencil. If I disappear, show this to Jenna. Jenna Doyle was already at her office when the call came in. Carter's voice was blunt. We need to talk. Bring your recorder. 20 minutes later, she was seated in his office, facing a table full of secrets. Her eyes flicked over the documents, then settled on the check. Why would Mark write Rick a check for $50,000? Carter folded his arms. That's the question, isn't it? Rick says it was a business loan, but these invoices, he tapped the stack, tell a different story. And Lisa knew. Hell, she documented it. Maybe she planned to go public. Jenna narrowed her eyes. Or maybe she used it as leverage to get out of a marriage she didn't want. Or maybe, Carter replied grimly, it got her killed. Rick finally walked through the station doors at noon. No lawyer. Just denim, sweat, and desperation. I didn't kill her, he said, before anyone spoke. Carter motioned to the interrogation room. Rick followed like a man heading to the gallows. The recorder clicked on. The room hummed with bad history. I loved her, Rick said, voice raw. Yeah, I was stupid. I thought maybe she'd pick me. We met up the night before the wedding. I tried to talk her out of it. She said it was too late, said she couldn't hurt Mark, and yet you accepted a $50,000 check from him. Rick's jaw tightened. It wasn't hush money. It was to cover a failed project. Mark trusted me with those builds. I screwed up the permits, and we lost the contracts. That money was meant to buy time, or buy silence. I didn't kill her, Rick repeated, but someone wanted her quiet. Rick's stare broke. He looked down, voice barely above a whisper. She told me she was going to leave the day after the wedding. Said she'd meet me at the cabin Monday morning. We were going to, his voice caught. I waited, she never showed, and you never told anyone. She was married. I figured she changed her mind. I figured it was over. Carter leaned back, arms crossed. You figured wrong. Later that night, Jenna sat with Abby in her apartment, a mess of paper clippings and coffee cups between them. Abby had dark circles under her eyes and a haunted look Jenna recognized all too well. She lied to me, Abby said suddenly. Who? Jenna asked. Lisa. She made me her maid of honor and told me she loved Mark, said she was ready, that she was excited. But now, I read her diary. I see all of it. She was unraveling. Torn between two men. Trapped between truth and appearances. She was scared. She was selfish, Abby snapped. Then her voice softened. But she didn't deserve what happened. No one does. Abby reached into her coat pocket and pulled something out crumpled, yellowed with time. I found this in her glove compartment months ago. I didn't think anything of it then. She passed it to Jenna. It was a receipt from a payphone booth. May 4th, 1985. Last Dias y 12 Página. M. The exact time Lisa and Mark should have been on the road. The number dialed wasn't local. Jenna traced it through old directories. It belonged to a man named Charles Berminer, private investigator in Denver. By morning, Carter had a team on the phone. The Denver PI, now retired, was cooperative. His memory sharp. Yes, Lisa Marsden hired me, paid up front for a background check. She gave me Mark's social, said she had doubts, wanted to know if he was hiding anything. What did you find? Carter asked. Charles hesitated. A lot, and not enough time to tell her. What do you mean? I mailed the report. But if she vanished the night after the wedding, she never read it. The report, it turned out, was still sealed, returned to sender, sitting in a Denver storage unit, untouched. Carter took the next flight out. The report was brief, clinical. Mark Hollowell had no prior criminal record. But there were inconsistencies in his finances. Loans from private entities, a lien on Hollowell and Sons, and most chilling to payments to a shell company traced to a known fixer. Once tied to violent debt collection, the pieces were shifting. The triangle wasn't just Mark Lasirik. There was someone else. A fourth presence, hiding in the margins of every transaction. By the time Carter returned, Jenna had her headline drafted. She never planned to stay. Lisa's final days reveal love, lies, and blackmail. The story would drop Sunday, unless someone stopped it, and someone would try, because someone had a lot to lose if the truth ever saw daylight. That night, a rock crashed through the window of Jenna's car. Wrapped in paper, one word: stop. The ink was smudged, but the warning was clear. 12 years later, the quarry was quiet again. No tape, no headlines. Just birdsong and wind slicing across weeds that had overgrown the once infamous gravel pull-off. Nature was forgetful like that. But technology, WASN, single quotes, miles away, in a windowless lab on MIT's West Campus. Graduate researcher Maya Singh squinted at a high-resolution satellite composite from 1997. Her assignment was routine. Evaluate archival geospatial data for signs of environmental change across Midwestern water bodies. It was supposed to be boring. It was meant to be boring. But then she zoomed in. Harrow Quarry, Indiana. A perfect square of murky green, surrounded by sediment lines and tire track ghostings, and their halves emerged in shadow was a gleam, a glint of unnatural geometry in a place where nothing should have glinted. A rectangular silhouette, too clean, too sharp, and just reflective enough to catch the afternoon sun. On an image taken from 438 miles above Earth. Maya leaned closer, clicked, zoomed again. The object was roughly the size of a small car, or a shipping container, or a Mustang Sheriff. Del Carter was pruning his overgrown tomatoes when the phone rang. He hadn't worn a badge in almost 6 years, and he didn't miss it except on nights when the wind howled off the quarry and dragged memories behind it like tin cans. He answered on the fourth ring, half expecting another robocall. This is Del, Sheriff Carter. The voice was young, clipped, unsure. My name's Maya Singh. I'm a researcher at MIT. I believe I found something connected to a missing persons case from 1985. He almost laughed. Almost said, "They're all cold now, honey." But then she said 2 words, Harrow Quarry. His heart stopped for half a second. Say that again, he murmured. Within a week, Maya had flown out to Ashwood, invited by a hesitant but intrigued Del. She arrived with her laptop, a dense thumb drive of satellite data, and a dog-eared binder titled Temporal Object Consistency in Rural Topography. She wasn't a cop, she wasn't even a local, but she had something. Del DIDN, single quotes to perspective. At the diner, Maya laid her laptop open across the table between a half-eaten plate of biscuits and a sheriff's badge that no longer held power. She pulled up the image. This, she pointed, is the southwest corner of Harrow Quarry, taken in 1997. Del nodded. Looks the same as ever. Now here's the same spot, taken in 1991. She toggled. The object was gone. Another toggle. 1994. Gone 1995. Gone. 1996. Present. It first appears between October 95 and March 96, but it doesn't move, doesn't degrade. Which means whatever it is, it wasn't part of the original quarry layout. Del stared. What are you saying? I'm saying Something was put there, Sheriff. And based on its dimensions, length, height, material signature, it could be an old car. That night, Del sat on his back porch, sipping black coffee that had gone cold. 12 years. 12 goddamn years. He'd combed the quarry, dived it, dredged it. Walked every inch of shoreline, until his boots cracked. They found old tires, junk, metal, beer cans, animal bones. But never that. How had they missed it? And then it hit him, they hadn't missed it. It wasn't there yet. The next morning, Jenna Doyle stood in front of the Ashwood County Historical Society. Now, the ghost shell of her old newsroom. Her hair was streaked with silver now. Her voice carried more weight. She hadn't written a story in years, but when Del showed her the image, she felt it, the throb in her chest, the fire in her gut. "We need to overlay this with old maps," she said, "and we need permission to dig." "It's private land now," Del muttered. "Sold to a commercial orchard in '94. So we go at night." Del raised a brow. She smiled. "You want answers, Sheriff. You want justice. Then you need a shovel and a permit nobody talks about." Maya, Jenna, and Del returned to the quarry that weekend. The orchard company had installed a fence and rows of apple trees that looked too symmetrical, too staged. But the ground beneath still remembered what it held. Maya pulled out her scanner. A newer tech-ground penetrating radar, attached to a tablet. "I get one strong return under this row," she said. Roughly 6 feet down. Del called in a favor with a local contractor, paid cash, no paperwork. Just a backhoe, a tarp, and 3 people with too many questions and too little time. The dig began at dusk. At 4 feet. They hit rock. At 5, metal. At 6. Silence. Del stepped into the hole, scraped away dirt, a sheen of dull, curved white. Reflected the moon. He brushed it off with his shirt. Mustang, half-buried nose, angled downward. As if it had been pushed in fast, like garbage dumped in a hurry. Maya knelt beside him, whispering, "We found it." Inside the trunk, they found remnants of fabric, a sliver of lace, a glint of gold, a corroded key still in the ignition. A passenger window cracked halfway down. No bodies. Not yet. But something far worse. On the back seat lay a single folded photograph, protected in a plastic sleeve. Lisa's face. Mark's arm smiling, but behind the reflection of a mirror on the motel wall was another face, blurry, but watching. Not Rick, not family, not a guest. A 4th person, unknown, uninvited. Jenna stared at the photo, ice in her spine. "I think someone followed them." Del nodded, but his mouth was tight. Or someone was already there waiting. That night, as they loaded the evidence into plastic bins, the wind blew strong through the orchard rows. Del Carter stood over the Mustang's shell and whispered to himself. "All these years, and they were right here, under our feet." The truth was coming up from the soil like rot, and it wasn't finished yet. For the first time in 12 years, Harrow Quarry buzzed with life. Crime scene tape flooded between apple trees. Floodlights hummed. Officers stepped carefully around the Mustang's rusting skeleton, now dragged from its shallow grave like a confession too late. But the biggest revelation wasn't in the car. It came in the form of 2 grainy, forgotten frames unearthed, not from the quarry, but from the sky. Jenna Doyle had learned long ago that the devil wasn't just in the details, it was in the archives. And so, after the Mustang's discovery, she'd put in a call to a retired Department of Transportation analyst in Indianapolis. A tollbooth camera at exit 17 on Highway 3 had captured every vehicle headed toward Harrow Quarry on the night of May 4, 1985. Only 2 videos from that booth still existed. One was damaged, the other wasn't. Maya Singh was the first to analyze the footage. The timestamp read 11:48 p.m. It showed a white Mustang pulling through the toll booth. Headlights on, roof down, a male figure in the driver's seat, a female passenger beside him, neither visible clearly, but as the Mustang passed, the camera caught a flicker just a second. Maybe less, a third figure in the back seat, barely visible, hunched, still not luggage. Not a coat, A person. Sheriff Del Carter rewound it 17 times. That's not Lisa, he said finally. Voice low. Jenna leaned forward. Then who the hell was it? Del didn't answer. He couldn't. The Mustang had been staged. That much was now certain. Forensics found a dry-rotted rope tied to the chassis, likely used to lower it gently into the quarry rather than simply driven off, which meant someone had returned after the wedding. Someone had access to equipment, time, and most chilling of all intention, and that someone had wanted the world to believe Lisa and Mark had disappeared together. But the footage cracked that story wide open. Because if Mark and Lisa had both been in the front seats, then who was in the back? Let's go back to the motel, Jenna said. Del didn't protest. He knew better than to doubt her instincts now. They pulled into the Stillwater Motel at dusk. The sign buzzed like a tired flytrap. The front desk was manned by a new kid, maybe 22, who barely looked up from his comic book. Del flashed his old badge. The kid blinked. "Y'all FBI or something?" "Or something," Jenna said, sliding the photo across the counter, the one found in the Mustang. The mirror reflection, the blurred face. Watching, this was taken in room 6. Jenna said, "Back in 1985, we need access to your archives. Guest logs, maintenance records, anything." The kid blinked again. "We don't exactly have archives, but the owner did." 10 minutes later, they were in the back office, thumbing through a ratty ledger covered in mustard, stains and ballpoint scribbles. Del stopped on May 4, 1985. Room 6. Mark Hollowell. Room 7. Vacant room 8. C. Grayson. Who the hell is C. Grayson? Jenna asked. Grayson. The name rang no bells. No ties to the town. No mutual contacts with Lisa, Mark or Rick. Maya ran it through every digital database she had access to. No criminal records. No business filings. No social presence. Nothing. Then, she found something. A parking ticket, issued in Denver, 1984. Paid in cash, to a Clifford Grayson. Associated address, a PO box registered to a defunct private security firm. A firm later tied to debt collection agencies, and one of Mark Hollowell's silent investors. Jesus, Jenna muttered. Mark owed money. And this guy Grayson was the collector. Del nodded, which means he wasn't just watching. He was working. They pieced it together in jagged, bitter fragments. Mark borrowed money from the wrong people to keep his failing construction business alive. Lisa found out. She hired a P.I. She planned to leave a mark, or everything altogether. Mark panicked. He contacted Rick. They argued. Then came Grayson, but the sequence still didn't fit perfectly. Too many smudged corners, so they went back to the footage. The 2:03 a.m. motel image. The reflection. Maya applied facial deblurring software. Slow. Experimental, but just enough to isolate features. High forehead, narrow jaw, no visible emotion, and a scar. Vertical, just left of the eye. Back at the sheriff's office, Del dusted off an old manila folder labeled Hollowell Construction, Legal 8385. Inside a list of contractors and subcontractors. Second page. Security clearance issued for Cliff Grayson, freelance site inspector. Son of a bitch was on Mark's payroll, Del said, but not for long, Jenna added. My guess, Mark defaulted, and Grayson was sent to collect. Or silence. The final nail came from an anonymous envelope delivered to Jenna's porch the next morning. Inside was a single photo, Polaroid cracked, warped with age. It showed a man in a black coat standing in the Stillwater Motel parking lot. His face shadowed, but the scar clear. Across the back of the image, in fading blue ink, he was there. I saw him. I begged Mark to tell the truth. He wouldn't. Lisa had tried. She had tried so hard at the newly reopened quarry site. Ground teams continued excavating. At 3:14 p.m., they found human remains. Partial, disarticulated. Female. Traces of lace. Caught between ribs, Dental records confirmed the impossible. Lisa Marston, not in the Mustang, not in Denver, not in hiding. She had been there all along, only not in the place. They'd been told to look, because someone had moved the Mustang afterward, and Mark, still missing, still unaccounted for, unless he too was buried somewhere nearby, or worst, still alive. Watching the story resurface, like a body that refused to sink, the audio crackled to life like an old ghost waking up. It came from the Denver private investigator's storage locker, a dusty cassette marked only with the date. May 4, 1985. 7:31 p.m. The PI, Charles Borman, hadn't even remembered recording it until he revisited his case notes. But when Jenna Doyle called him with news of Lisa's confirmed remains, something in him shifted. She was scared that night, he told her. I didn't realize how much until I heard the tape again. They played it in Sheriff Carter's office. The room was still. Even the fluorescent lights hummed a little softer. Lisa's voice came through slow and cautious, like she was trying to hold her world together with the careful placement of each word. It's not just Mark. I think someone's following us. Watching, he won't admit it, but I know. There was a man outside the motel window. Same guy from the construction site last month. The one with the scar. I feel like I'm being managed. Like everyone's in on something I don't understand. Her breath hitched. A pause. Then, if anything happens to Mattel Abbey, I'm sorry. And tell Jenna, she was right about everything. Silence. Then the click of a receiver. Jenna blinked rapidly, hiding the burn behind her eyes. She had always known Lisa wasn't running. She had always known Lisa was warning. Dell exhaled, long and quiet. She knew her time was up. Forensics confirmed the cause of death. Blunt force trauma to the back of the skull. No defensive wounds, no struggle. She was likely hit from behind, quick, efficient, buried soon after. There were no fibers in the burial soil, no fresh DNA. The site had been washed, standard fixer, behavior, but the tape changed everything. The audio wasn't just a voice from the past, it was now evidence proof. Lisa feared for her life. Proof she named her stalker. Proof that someone knew. The manhunt for Clifford Grayson was launched the next morning. Or rather, relaunched. Grayson had been off-grid since 1989. No credit history. No utility bills, no taxes filed. His social security number was never officially retired, but it hadn't been used in decades. Until last year, an anonymous tip pointed them toward a shipping container in Laurel, Mississippi rented under an alias, but the tenant used a driver's license. Photo from 1982. With a vertical scar, Dell stared at the faxed image. Even blurred, even age, there was no mistaking the face. The man in Lisa's photo. The man in the back seat. Let's go, he said. Mississippi was wet, humid, and unwelcoming. The local sheriff's department offered to patrol cars and one worn-out map. The container sat behind an abandoned feed store, shielded by cane fields and silence. Its padlock had rusted over. The air smelled like diesel and dust. When they cut it open, the smell hit first: rot, mold, old iron, and behind a stack of crates, buried under a tarp, was a typewriter, a journal, a stack of old news articles all about the Marston Hollowell. Casey had kept everything. Dell picked up the journal carefully. The first page was dated July 1985. The handwriting was neat, precise, cold. It should have been simple. She panicked. Mark begged. I handled it. That word handled settled in Dell's chest like lead. He flipped forward. June 1986. Buried the car late. Rented a winch. Rick never suspected a thing. Further, Mark wouldn't shut up. Said he had nightmares. Gave him the number for the doc. Told him to move. Said he'd write a letter. The last entry was from 1989. Left Indiana. To many questions. Got sloppy. Won't return. Rick was brought in again. He sat in the same interrogation chair. Looking older now, like the truth had shaved years off his life. Dell tossed the journal on the table. Rick's hands trembled. Is it true? You tell me, Dell snapped. Never knew she was dead, Rick whispered. I thought she left. Or that Mark may have started this mess, Del said. But he didn't finish it. Grayson did. On your payroll. With your silence, Jenna stepped in. Held up the typewriter ribbon found in the container. One of the spools had a partial letter still imprinted. From Mark, dated May 10, 1985. Addressed to Lisa's parents, never mailed. She read it aloud. I didn't want this. I swear I didn't. She wasn't supposed to get hurt. I tried to fix it. I let him talk me into it. A long pause. Rick buried his head in his hands. I thought we'd get away with it, he mumbled. But I didn't think she'd die. That night, Jenna stood outside the Marston house with Abby. The porch hadn't changed. The wind still sounded like regret. She tried to warn us, Abby whispered. She did warn us, Jenna said. We just weren't listening. From her coat pocket, she pulled the USB. The audio file, the last thing Lisa ever said. Dodderby closed. Her eyes, can I hear it? Jenna nodded. They listened together. The wind, Lisa's voice, her breath, her fear. It wasn't closure. There would never be closure, but it was truth at last. The storm came in hard sheets of rain slicing across the orchard like razors. Thunder rolled over Ashwood, like something ancient waking up. For 3 days, the sky wept over the town that had finally unearthed its shame, and then, the ground gave something back. It started with a tree. A honeycrisp, 30 feet tall, planted in the western grove of the orchard, behind Harrow Quarry. When the wind snapped its trunk, the soil around its roots tore like paper and something metallic glinted beneath the exposed dirt. Work glove, rusted, still gripping a shovel. A few inches deeper, bone. The excavation began before dawn, under halogen beams and breath clouds. Sheriff Del Carter hadn't slept in 30 hours. Neither had Jenna Doyle. The forensic team worked slow, reverent. This wasn't just evidence, it was a grave, a hidden page from a story that refused to end. At 3:12 a.m., they pulled up the rest of the body, male, mid-30s, clothes faded but intact, still wearing a Hollowell construction windbreaker. Dental records confirmed what everyone already knew. Mark Hollowell. He hadn't disappeared, he hadn't fled, he hadn't been hiding. He'd been dead since 1985, buried beneath the very trees that funded the lie. They buried him like garbage, Jenna said, voice shaking. Like he didn't even matter. Del's face was unreadable. He mattered. To someone, just not the man who put him in the ground. Jenna turned toward the tree line, where floodlights flickered through the rain. This isn't just about money, is it? No, Del said. This was punishment. Maya Singh processed the scene in silence. She didn't know Mark, or Lisa, or the town's twisted history, but she knew what she was seeing. The roots of the honeycrisp had wrapped around Mark's ribs, curled through his coat, as if the orchard had tried to reclaim him, erase him, feed on him. But trees don't forget. They remember what they were planted on, back at the station. Del laid out the timeline on the whiteboard. May 4, 1985. Lisa and Mark leave the wedding, May 5. Early morning, Lisa is murdered by Grayson. May 6, Mark vanishes. May 7th to 9th, Mustang is staged. Quarry burial faked. May 10th, Grayson writes. Last journal entry, but new evidence forced an update. Lisa's body was buried in the eastern side of the orchard. Mark's on the opposite end. Separate locations, separate graves, separate intentions. Jenna brought in the photo from the motel, again the one with the reflection, in the mirror. But now she noticed something else, not the man behind them, but Mark's face. His eyes weren't looking at Lisa. They were looking past her at something or someone in the doorway. Back in the evidence room, a single question echoed like a heartbeat. Who killed Mark Hollowell? Grayson, possibly, but his journal never admitted to it. He mentioned fixing things. Yes, he described Lisa's burial, the car, but Mark, just 2 words, he panicked. Del reread the last letter, the one Mark never mailed to Lisa's parents. I tried to fix it. I let him talk me into it. So who did the fixing? If Grayson had buried Lisa, Who buried Mark? Jenna drove out to Rick Lowell's house that night. He answered in a stained t-shirt, eyes sunken. Grief aged people in strange ways, but guilt. Guilt etched the years in stone. You knew, she said. No small talk. You knew Mark was dead. Rick didn't flinch, just leaned against the doorframe, exhausted. Not at first, he said. But later. Yeah, I figured. Did you help bury him? No, he said. I helped dig. It came spilling out like a cracked pipe. Lisa had been dead. Grayson said it was an accident. Mark was in shock. Kept mumbling about calling the police, about confessing. Grayson wouldn't have it. Rick had walked into the orchard to find Mark on his knees, sobbing into dirt, Grayson standing behind him with a tire iron. I thought he was just gonna threaten him, Rick said. Scare him into silence. But he didn't. Rick's voice cracked. He just swung. Like it was routine. Like it was nothing. And then, you dig, or you join him. That was what Grayson said. So Rick dug. Back at the sheriff's office, Del Carter sat alone in the dark, staring at two mugshots tacked side by side. Lisa Marston, Victor Mark Hollowell, victim, and under them both, Clifford Grayson, ghost. But even ghosts leave fingerprints. They leave orchards. They leave tire tracks. They leave trees that remember. The case was reclassified as a double homicide. The orchard was seized. The land quarantined. The town of Ashwood, once sleepy and golden, became a monument to lies and quiet cruelty. Tourists stopped by just to see where the couple had vanished. Social media did what media always does, turned pain into pixels. But not Jenna. Her final article ran front page. No ads, no sensationalism. What the Trees Remember by Jenna Doyle. They buried her in silence. They buried him in shame. They planted trees over their bodies to grow profit from pain. But the roots did not forget. The wind did not forgive. And even after 12 years, truth found its way to the surface. In a ceremony that fall, 2 plaques were placed on the orchard's edge. Lisa Marston, 1959 to 1985, beloved daughter. Stolen bride. Buried truth. Mark Hollowell, 1958 to 1985, son of Ashwood. Flawed but not forgotten. The town stood quiet, because sometimes grief speaks loudest when no one dares to say a word. The envelope arrived without a stamp, just a crisp, beige rectangle tucked beneath the front door of the Ashwood Gazette, now long shut. Its windows dusty and its sign half-faded, but Jenna Doyle still came every morning. Habit, maybe hope, more likely. She found it on a Wednesday, plain, unmarked, no return address. Inside, one sheet of paper, folded into thirds, handwritten, ink smeared at the bottom, as if from shaking fingers or tears. It began simply. You missed one thing. Jenna read it 3 times in the parking lot. The first time, she didn't breathe. The second time, she cursed. The third time, she cried. She drove straight to Del Carter's house. He was on his porch, pruning the same tomatoes he always abandoned during harvest. She dropped the letter into his lap, like a grenade. Read it, she said. He did. You missed one thing. Grayson didn't bury Lisa. I did. She was already dead. But she didn't die, the way the news says. It wasn't quick. It wasn't painless. Grayson didn't swing a bat. He made her wait. Hours. Kept saying Mark would confess, but Mark never did. She begged me to end it, and I did. I buried her with my own hands. I wrapped her in my coat. I laid her down in the orchard where she used to pick wildflowers as a girl. It was the only place she ever called peaceful. I never told anyone, because I was already dead inside, because no one would believe me. But now that she's been found, I need her to be remembered right. Not as a victim, but as someone who fought. Burn this or don't. I don't care anymore. A.M. Del, read it twice before speaking. A.M. That's not Abby Marsden, no, Jenna said. But it is. Someone we forgot. Del's eyes narrowed. Alex Marsden, Lisa's younger brother, 10 years her junior. Barely a teenager in 1985, shy, quiet, always in Lisa's shadow. Moved out of town in 1987 after their parents died, never returned, never asked, And no one ever questioned that. They found him 3 towns over, working at a hardware store under the name Alan Mays. No criminal record. No red flags, just a quiet man with tired eyes and a limp in his left leg. Car accident. 2 years ago, Del and Jenna pulled into the lot and waited for him outside. He saw them before they spoke, and for a moment, he froze, eyes locked, jaw tight. Then, he sighed. I knew someone would come. The confession wasn't violent, it wasn't angry. It was weary. Alex had come to the motel the night of the wedding, hoping to convince Lisa to leave town with him. He had overheard something Mark arguing with Grayson in the church basement before the ceremony. Threats. Something about repayment, something about Lisa's bad timing. Alex got scared, drove to the motel, saw Lisa bruised, shaking, saw Grayson leaving. I wasn't strong enough to stop him, Alex said, but I stayed with her. She was in so much pain. He swallowed. She asked me not to call an ambulance, she knew it was over. She asked me to take her somewhere quiet. Lisa had refused to be remembered as a woman who ran, or led, or got in too deep. She wanted peace, so Alex did what she asked. He buried her, alone, crying, 18 years old, digging into the soil beneath the same tree. They used to climb as kids, and then he left. Never looked back. She was the best person I ever knew, he said, eyes glistening. And all I ever did was fail her. Del didn't say a word, neither did Jenna. Because what do you say to the man who kept the final secret, for all the wrong reasons, and maybe all the right ones? No charges were filed. Lisa had been killed by Grayson. Alex had only buried her. There was no crime to prove, no motive to exploit, only grief, and the kind of silence that poisons generations. The orchard was sold off that winter. No one wanted the land anymore, too haunted, too loud in its quiet. The trees were cut down, not for profit, but out of mercy. But one tree remained, the one Lisa had once called her favorite. Under it, they placed a final stone. Not a grave, just a name. Lisa Marsden, you were loved. You were heard, you were not forgotten. Jenna's final article ran the next Sunday. The Letter in the Orchard, by Jenna Doyle. Not all stories end with justice. Some end with truth, and sometimes, that's enough. Lisa Marsden didn't vanish. She waited for someone to listen, for someone to return. And now, finally, she can rest. There were killers who vanished into the shadows. And then, there was Clifford Grayson, a man who carried the shadows with him. For weeks after Alex's confession, Ashwood felt like it had exhaled. The orchard was cleared, the case declared closed. Names were written in stone, truths carved from silence. But for Sheriff Del Carter and Jenna Doyle, the final thread remained maddeningly uncut. Grayson, still out there, still unaccounted for, still watching maybe. And then came the call from Missouri. A young woman, hotel maid, checked an abandoned room before checkout. Inside, no guests, no luggage, just a manila folder on the dresser and a prepaid phone, buzzing endlessly with no ID. The folder held 5 photographs, each one more chilling than the last. A woman with bruises under sunglasses. A man with duct tape over his mouth, tied to a chair. A child's backpack beside a blood-stained mattress. An open grave in dry, red soil, and the last a mirror selfie, taken in a motel bathroom, half of Grayson's face, visible the same vertical scar, just to the left of his eye. Jenna sat with the photos spread across her office, like tarot cards. Del stood behind her, silent. I thought he was done, she whispered. He's never been done, Del muttered. Because Grayson wasn't just a fixer. He was a pattern. Wherever he went, lives bent, morals frayed, secrets silenced, and now he was leaving breadcrumbs. But to where? Maya Singh returned to help sort through digital records, cross-referencing motel check-ins, prepaid phone purchases, vehicle rentals under false names. Her algorithms found something almost poetic. Every 6 months since 1995, a missing persons case had gone unsolved in a town Grayson had passed through. A waitress in Nebraska, a plumber's daughter in Kansas, a trucker's wife in Tennessee, A realtor in Ohio, no connection except timing, and in each case, one blurry man in a crowd, scarred watching. This isn't just a cover-up artist, Maya said. He's a serial operator. Maybe a serial killer, maybe worse. Dell looked down at the photos again. And we thought Ashwood was the end of his story. Jenna exhaled, eyes tight. It was just the prologue. They issued a federal warrant. FBI took jurisdiction. Grayson was added to an internal watch list, but there was no known alias, no known address, no next of kin, only shadows, only teeth marks left behind, until the letter came. Jenna found it again, on her doorstep, same envelope, same handwriting. Inside, "You're close, Jenna, but not close enough. I never stopped, not after Lisa. She wasn't my first. Won't be my last. But she was the only one who looked me in the eyes when she died. That's why I remember her." The others scream. She stared. No name, no threats, just a signature burned into the paper like a bruise. G.I. Dell wanted to lock her down. Bodyguards, silence, FBI containment. Jenna refused. "I didn't drag this story out of the dirt, just to run now," she said. "If he wants me scared, he'll have to do better than poetic letters." Dell grunted. He already did better. He's still free. Later that week, Abby Marsden came to see Jenna. She'd aged quickly in the past month. Grief had a way of speeding up time, stealing color from the face. "He's not finished," Abby said, hands shaking. "No," Jenna agreed. "Then don't give him the ending he wants. Don't let this be another chapter where the monster disappears and the girl gets buried." Jenna nodded. And that night, she made a decision. The final story went live at midnight. The Man with No Gravestone, a letter to Clifford Grayson. It wasn't news. It was a trap. You never got a headstone, Grayson. No family, no roots. Just a scar and a ghost's name. But we've marked your grave now, with every life you tried to erase. With every town you passed through. With every girl who never screamed. You wanted to be forgotten, but we remember you, and we're coming. The story went viral in 3 hours. 2 days later, in a remote stretch of Nevada highway, a trucker reported a flatbed with an old man passed. Out in the back seat, he had no ID, but a vertical scar split his temple. Grayson was arrested without resistance. Inside his motel room, 6 more manila folders, 4 names linked to open cases, 2 marked next, and 1 final page. Written in block letters. She stared. You all blinked. That's why she won. At the trial, Jenna testified. So did Rick Lowell. So did Maya Singh, who laid out the digital trail that had tracked him for a decade. He said nothing. The entire time, he didn't have to. Lisa's voice had said it all, years ago, from the cassette. "If anything happens to me, tell Abby I'm sorry, and tell Jenna she was right." Grayson died in prison 3 years later. No family claimed the body. No obituary was written. No grave was marked. Just a file. Closed. Epilogue. 1 year later, the orchard is wild now. Grass reclaiming the soil. Trees gone, but birds returning. Jenna stands alone beneath the last plaque. She whispers to the wind. You stared, and now the world stares back, and for once, there's peace, real peace. Because monsters die, but truth does not. Ashwood no longer made the news. No more press vans parked outside the sheriff's station. No documentary crews asking about the Orchard murders. No blurred images of Lisa's lace dress or Mark's Mustang sinking into grainy satellite stills. Instead, there were daisies, and weeds, and the quiet hum of nature reclaiming what man tried to bury. The town had stopped talking, but not forgetting because truth doesn't need an audience, it just needs time. Jenna Doyle hadn't written a word in 8 months. Her keyboard stayed quiet, her emails unanswered. The Gazette was long gone, replaced by a real estate office with a generic logo and too much glass. But she still walked the orchard path every Sunday, still paused at the plaque beneath Lisa's tree, still felt the weight of 12 years that weren't hers to carry, but she carried them anyway. Because someone, Padilla Sheriff Del Carter, officially retired. Again, this time, for real. No tomatoes, no badge hung in the closet. Just a porch swing, a weathered notebook, and a dog named Rusty who snored like thunder. He kept one picture on the wall, Lisa and Mark, smiling under the church arch. Before the rain started, he kept a second in his desk drawer. Jenna, holding the cassette. Headphones on, eyes burning with clarity. Because sometimes, truth comes from those who refuse to blink. Rick Lowell left town, no press, no apology. Just a notarized deed, and a donation to the Marston Scholarship Fund. People said he drove west. Others said he drank himself into a coma outside Tulsa. Jenna didn't ask, she didn't care. Closure wasn't the same as forgiveness, especially when the blood was still drying beneath your fingernails. 12 years too late. Maya Singh went back to MIT, hailed as a rising name in geospatial forensics. She published 2 papers, got invited to 3 documentaries, but she never stopped checking in with Jenna, because no algorithm could explain what happened in Ashwood. Some stories lived in the roots, and Alex Marsden, he stayed. He bought back the family house, planted sunflowers in the backyard, built a small bench under the oak tree his sister used to climb when they were kids. He didn't speak at public events, didn't attend the memorials, but every spring, he laid white tulips at the edge of the old orchard. One for Lisa. One for Mark. One for the life he never got to have, and one for the secret he carried for far too long. They held a final service. That fall, not a funeral, not a vigil, a reckoning. The mayor read a short statement, apologized for the silence, the inaction. The years spent pretending nothing had gone wrong, but no one clapped, no one cheered, because truth isn't something you celebrate, it's something you carry. Jenna did write one last thing, not for a paper, not for a blog, not even for a book, just for Lisa. She printed it on thick linen paper, folded it carefully, and buried it beneath a stone at the orchard's edge. It read, "You were brave when we were blind. You stared when the rest of us closed our eyes. We let you down, but we dug you up. Now, rest. The roots remember you. The wind sings your name." Grayson's story ended where it always belonged, marked, unmourned, and unwanted. The man with no gravestone became the man with no echo. But Lisa's voice remained. In recordings, in articles, in the tears of the sister who still lit a candle every May. Years later, the orchard became a sanctuary. No more apples, no tourists, no signs, just a winding path, a rusted swing, a plaque that read, "The ones who were left to Long Ashwood Memorial Grove, established for Lisa and Mark, and all those who vanish in silence." A schoolgirl on a field trip once asked her teacher, why didn't they look for her sooner? The teacher answered, "Because sometimes, it's easier not to see." The girl frowned, "But that's not fair." "No," the teacher said, "it's not. Truth doesn't arrive on time, it shows up late, muddy, uninvited. Sometimes in the voice of a dead woman on a cassette. Sometimes in the photograph someone buried. Sometimes in the silence between gunshots and headlines. But it arrives, eventually, and when it does, it doesn't knock, it digs." Final scene. 1 year later, Jenna stands under Lisa's tree. Alone, the orchard is quiet. The sun is setting behind the hills, bleeding orange into the wildflowers. She pulls a small recorder from her coat. Presses play. Lisa's voice hums through the air. "If anything happens to me." Jenna closes her eyes, smiles. "You were heard, Lisa. You were heard."